province and a labour union call on Ottawa to make an investment that could benefit Thunder Bay's Alstom plant. Good evening and thank you for joining us. It's a collaboration you don't see very often. The Ford government is teaming up with a union to pressure Ottawa for subway car funding.
Ford and the national president of Unifor, which represents workers at Thunder Bay's Alstom plant, have issued a joint statement. They're calling on the Trudeau government to contribute its share to a much-needed subway contract for Toronto. Jonathan Wilson is following the story and joins us in studio. John?
Thanks, Riley. The president of Unifor Local 1075, which represents about 350 workers at the Alstom plant, is echoing that urgent call. Justin Roberts says with only so much work remaining on the Toronto streetcar contract, they could lose half of their members by the middle of next year.
If the federal government doesn't provide the funding, the contract won't be available for us to bid on, which would give us no work for the future, and future layoffs would be coming a lot sooner than later.
Toronto's aging subway cars, which were built at the Thunder Bay plant in the 1980s and 90s, are expected to reach the end of their lifespan in 2026. Toronto and the province have each committed around $750 million to produce 330 new subway car units, but a lack of funding from Ottawa has been holding up that contract for over a year now. The local plant also produced the newer Toronto Rocket subway trains in the early 2000s. Roberts says they could do it again, but the funding delay continues.
It's extremely frustrating because it's not the first time that this has happened. The federal government almost holds the funding hostage, waiting for the right moment for them to give it to us, when the sooner we get it, the better.
In a rare move, Premier Doug Ford and Unifor National President Lana Payne issued a joint statement about the need for the Trudeau government to invest in jobs in Thunder Bay and step forward with its share of funding for replacement subway trains for the TTC. The statement concludes, "Together we are calling on the federal government to offer the workers in Thunder Bay the certainty and stability they deserve. It's time for the federal government to join us in securing the future for workers and transit users."
I like it, and I agree with it.
Local MP Marcus Pawlowski says he's continually lobbying his government for funding to keep the local Alstom plant open. He points out that some funding sources from the federal government have been tapped out, and the next funding envelope for things like the subway cars will open in 2026. But he recognizes that's not soon enough.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely advocating for this, and I will continue to, and it's something that concerns Toronto as well, and so there's a lot of MPs in Toronto who I think would also like to see this happen. I think we're definitely in favor of doing this.
I'm very hopeful that the federal government will come through with the funding. They have in the past, and if they come through with this sooner than later, then our company can start bidding on the contract, and hopefully we get the contract here in Thunder Bay.
A statement from the Transport Minister says the federal government will continue to collaborate closely with the TTC and the City of Toronto to understand how Ottawa can support their needs, but there's no word on when or if that subway funding will be delivered. Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
As the hours count down to a midnight strike deadline, local LCBO workers say they'd much rather head to work tomorrow than hit the picket line, but if they need to strike, they'll be ready. If a deal between LCBO workers and the province can't be struck before the deadline, workers here will be among those who hit the picket line. There are 140 LCBO workers in Thunder Bay, represented by OPSU. That includes Mo Marcinet and Crystal Herman. They say workers here can't afford to strike, but they really can't afford to permanently lose their jobs. They say the Northwest would be hit hard if the Ford government expands private alcohol sales, as some smaller LCBOs could be closed and public services could lose millions in funding.
Well, we're hoping that we get a deal, that we settle. We want a good deal for all of Ontario. We want to maintain, good health care, good infrastructure for the province.
They want to have 8,500 locations open by the end of this year, which is quite alarming. That's a lot of sales that are going to be taken from us as Ontarians into our healthcare, our roads, our schools, and put it into the hands of big business.
And we are getting word now that talks have broken down. That's according to the union, and they do expect to be on the picket line tomorrow. This would be the first LCBO strike since the founding of the public corporation nearly a century ago.
Two people on a motorcycle were sent to hospital with serious injuries after a collision with a passenger vehicle on the city's south side last night. It happened just after 11 o'clock at the Arthur Street and Mount Dale Avenue intersection. The full extent of their injuries is unknown at this time. The Thunder Bay Police Traffic and Forensic Identification Units are now investigating.
There's been another violent incident outside Spence Court. A 33-year-old man has been arrested for allegedly stabbing a security guard outside the Amelia Street facility around 2 o'clock this morning. The victim was transported to hospital with what are believed to be non-life-threatening injuries. Police arrested Patrick Simon Raymond Wood later in the day. He's charged with assault with a weapon, possessing a weapon for a dangerous purpose, making threats, and 4 counts of breach of probation. The accused appeared in court today and remains in custody. The DSAB notes the suspect isn't a Spence Court tenant. Well, the province is making changes that it says will expand pathways for newcomers looking for work in the healthcare field. The Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program helps certain immigrants stay in the country if they have the skills and experience the economy needs. The province says it will now exempt nurses from having to provide a bachelor's degree when applying. Instead, they'll be able to register in designated classes. More healthcare occupations will also be eligible for a stream linked to employer job offers for those with in-demand skills.
The parking needs of downtown residents were identified by City Council as a blind spot in Thunder Bay's new parking plan.
Now, a consultation session was held yesterday afternoon to hear from some of those residents about how the new parking rules affect them. Lee Noonan was there.
City staffers were on hand at the Prince Arthur Hotel to hear from local citizens and collect their input on new parking regulations and the parking needs of downtown residents. City Communications Officer Jeff Walters says all the feedback they receive will be compiled into a report.
So we're asking if people have parking spaces if they live in the downtown. So do you have a dedicated space? Do you not have a dedicated space? Do you use the parkade? Do you not use the parkade? Why or why not? Do you use meters? What do you do in the winter?
Roughly 30 people dropped in over the course of the 2-hour meeting. For several of them, safety was the primary concern.
When I was parking in the parkade, my car was broken into twice in a single summer time span. And then as I was parking closer, paying for parking at my building, my car got a cinder block thrown through it, and to the point where it's unusable at this point.
For those of us that are walking to mitigate the parking costs that are now inflicted on those of us that make minimum wage in minimum wage positions, it has truly been very difficult, very anxiety-inducing. I've been followed leaving the downtown core, walking home.
Many people who do have dedicated parking spots shared concerns that the new fees and extended hours are keeping other people away from the marina and the downtown cores.
It's sad because we can see out our window or go for a walk along the marina because we don't have to worry about our parking, but the number of people have just been decimated.
There used to be a lot of people there who walked with their dog or walked with their walker, and you don't see them anymore.
When you think about it, you go out for dinner for 2 hours, and that's just adds $6 onto the bill, and dining out is expensive enough.
At least one person wants the city to consider making the downtown cores less car-friendly.
The way that the downtown is designed, sometimes you think it's designed as a highway to go from Winnipeg to Toronto rather than a place for people from Thunder Bay to actually live and enjoy. We need more areas that are pedestrianized.
Downtown residents who weren't able to make it to the consultation session can still submit their comments in writing to Municipal Parking Services. That contact information is available on the city's website. They're encouraged to get their comments in by July 7th. A report is due before Council at their July 22nd meeting. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
The Thunder Bay Art Gallery has faced some significant challenges related to budget overages during the construction of the new waterfront gallery.
But today, the project got some help with the announcement of a major gift towards the capital campaign from a pair of local Rotary clubs. Jaden Billick reports.
The Fort William and Port Arthur Rotary Clubs have collectively contributed $200,000 towards the new Thunder Bay Art Gallery on the waterfront. Executive Director of the gallery, Matthew Hills, says significant progress is being made towards the fundraising goals in their capital campaign.
We're really pleased to be here with Fort William Rotary and Port Arthur Rotary Clubs to announce their gift in support of realizing the new gallery. Both clubs respectively have supported this initiative with $100,000, and this is a partnership. Rotary is an important service club in our organization, and we really value the support and the initiation of this partnership, so we're really pleased to be announcing this today.
The local Rotary clubs rely on the support of the community to be able to show their support for important projects that bring new life to our city. After concluding another very successful house lottery this year, the Fort William Rotary Club was able to fund their commitment towards the ongoing art gallery project. Glenn Craig speaks on behalf of backing Rotarians.
Last year, just under $700,000 went out to the communities. And we're still tallying this year, but hopefully we're going to get a number about that. So, like I said, anything from Rotary Shelter House to Our Kids Count, RFDA, the Boys and Girls Club, like just the whole gambit. And Thunder Bay Art Gallery is a big part of our community, and we want to support that.
Port Arthur Rotary Club officials say this project addresses the importance of environmental health, truth and reconciliation, education, and economic development. Past President Shelley Crawford says that's why they decided to share their contribution. The Port Arthur Club will call the gallery home for the next 10 years as part of the funding deal.
It's all part of the package, if you like. We are naming that, and it cost $100,000, and that's was our pledge, and we are finishing that a year early, as a matter of fact, because we had a very successful gala. So our funds are here now. We want to get it to the gallery so that we can hopefully encourage other people in the community to continue that support.
The big project, currently estimated at $57 million, is scheduled to be complete by early 2026. Hill says the community can expect to see a series of similar donation announcements in the coming weeks. Jaden Billick, TBT News.
One of Thunder Bay's favorite bakeries has expanded once again.
Sweet North now has 3 locations in the city, with the most recent outlet opening up on High Street North. Neb Van Pelt has the details.
Sweet North Bakery just got a little bit sweeter as the locally owned shop officially opened its 3rd location. It's at 106 High Street North, and co-owner Erin DeLorenzi says they are very excited about this spot and love the neighborhood feel to it.
People are excited, they're here, they're happy. As long as you are excited and happy too, then it's good. They're our neighbors. That's how we feel. It's been really sweet because people will come in here and say, oh, my name's so-and-so and I live 2 blocks down.
The first Sweet North Bakery on Court Street South opened back in 2014 and quickly grew in popularity. The second location on Fort William Road opened in 2021 with a drive-through option. This little Thunder Bay success story has now blossomed into a 3-store enterprise. DeLorenzi explains they decided to have what she calls a sneaky opening of the High Street location, where they began welcoming customers last Friday but didn't tell anyone, and then posted on social media to make it official on Saturday.
There were people waiting outside, like you saw today, but immediately this storefront filled, and it was like that for hours. So I think, some of the younger staff were kind of like, what?
For the time being, the High Street location will be open Thursday through Sunday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., but DeLorenzi said they are working on expanding both their hours and offerings in the near future.
Traditionally, this was a convenience store, so we want to be open. And we want to be able to provide, a few convenience items that the neighborhood might need. So, yeah, we're looking forward to those expanded hours. Hopefully in the fall, we should be good to go.
The bakery is best known for their pretzels and sticky buns, and DeLorenzi shared their key to success.
Recreate that flavor from, like, your grandmother. Because when you were going over to your grandparents' house, they were using butter and whipped cream, and they were taking their time. They were digging out that special recipe and sharing it with you.
DeLorenzi says they are not working towards a 4th location right now, as they're just excited to settle in on High Street. Neb Van Pelt, TBT News.
Well, it's very close to our building, Riley. You and I were already talking about it. I feel like a lot of TBT staff will be
visiting. Absolutely, I cannot wait. Yeah. And Fiona, if you love having those special treats from the Sweet North Bakery, that's going to make you happy. But if you like the heat, I feel for the people outside today, today's high made them happy.
I think it did. It was a very comfortable, warm 23 Celsius,
but the Humidex still reached 28 if you like that little boost of heat. We had a low of 12 and winds were fairly light for the most part, much of the day, just a few gusty periods. Now, in the rest of the region, we've had some systems pushing up from the south, bringing some rain into northern Minnesota. Northwestern Ontario, for the most part, stayed out of the line of fire, but we did have, in the last little bit, some pop-up showers in areas further north, especially north of Lake Superior in towards Red Lake. They had a little bit of rain in the last hour, and then a thunderstorm suddenly popped up. So they're dealing with that right now at 21. Lots of sunshine in the fort, as I said, rain in Greenstone and increasing clouds in Sault Ste. Marie. Temperature-wise, though, very consistent. Last night they had overnight or early morning lows around 13, 14 Celsius across the board, topping out in the low 20s with just a couple of exceptions, and those current temperatures are due to the fact that the rain has moved in and cooling things down just a touch. But the Humidex is sitting at 26 at this moment, pretty much across the board, a little warmer in the Sioux. They've got a Humidex of 28 right now. And here in the city of Thunder Bay, we're going to drop down to a low of 13. There's just a 30% chance of a pop-up shower this evening. And then after that, it dries out for the most part under partly cloudy skies. And we're going to set the stage for a day that will be basically a repeat of today. We've got some sunshine, some increasing cloud, a slight risk of rain. In fact, you're probably going to be bored by the repetition that I'm going to give you in your forecast as we look ahead into the weekend, and I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay, well, I'll take boring if it was like today, Fiona.
Yes, there we go.
That was a pretty good one. Thanks a lot. All right, well, we are going to stick with weather. Of course, that is the big story internationally, and Hurricane Beryl, which slammed into Jamaica late yesterday. It didn't get hit as hard as perhaps was feared. However, that's cold comfort to those who were affected, and unfortunately, there were more fatalities because of that storm. We'll have the full details when your Thursday News Hour continues right after the break.
The damage was not what we had expected. So we're very grateful for that.